Okay, good morning everyone. Am I audible?
Okay. Action without vision is only passing time. Vision without action is merely daydreaming. But vision with action can change the world. Good morning, everyone. I, Meghana G, post graduation, Department of Criminology and Forensic Science, School of Social Work, Mangalore, would take this privilege to compare the national webinar on the topic Future Forensic Opportunities and Challenges, organized by our department in collaboration with Forensic Alumni Association Roshni, Mangalore, on the occasion of 10th anniversary of Masters in CFS program in our college campus. Before we start any event, we seek God's grace. Hence, let's invoke God's choicest blessings upon each one of us. I request Anisha and team of second year MSc CFS to lead us into prayer.
सदा सर्वदा योग तुझा घडावा तुझे कारणी देह माझा पडावा उपेक्षू नको गुणवंता अनंता रघुनायका मागणेची आता.
Thank you, Anisha. Almost every successful person begins with two beliefs. That is, the future can be better than the present, and we have the power to make it so. I'm glad to welcome our resource person, Mr. Hemant Kumar, who is addressing us on future forensic opportunities and challenges. It's our honor to have you here with us today. I welcome you, sir. With great pleasure, I extend a hearty welcome to our beloved principal, Dr. Juliet CJ, and Dr. Janice Mary, Vice Principal, and Ms. Evelyn Bennis, Secretary, Institute of Social Service. And a very warm welcome is there to our dear HOD, Sarita D'Souza, and members of the management, professors of various universities, alumni, teaching and non-teaching staff of our college, and all the participants and my dear friends. Welcome you all. Without further ado, we will turn the time over to our resource person, Mr. Hemant Kumar V, currently working as advocate at Karnataka State Bar Council, Bangalore. He has worked with NISA Global at the office of Delhi and Jammu Kashmir in accomplishing the project UDAN, involving the training and placement of JNK youths as security executives. He has also worked along with Delhi Police in a short-term study on prevention of street crimes and sexual crimes. He was also a guest faculty at Jain University and Sardar Patel University of Police, Security and Criminal Justice, Jodhpur. Over to you, sir. I request all the participants to type the questions or any queries in the chat box during the session. At the end of the session, it will be put forth for the discussion. Over to you, sir.
All right. Thank you, Meghana. Firstly, a very good morning. Eldrigu namaskara. I should convey my heartfelt wishes to the School of Social Work, Roshni Nilaya, Mangaluru, for reaching a milestone of 10 years. In one of the inauguration program in which I had visited, I had told those pioneers, you have hundreds of institutions which can call you and give you a job or which can impart education to you. But it needs a lot of courage and strength to start an institution and bring hundreds of people under that platform and impart them the knowledge. So one such adventure is done by School of Social Work Roshni, and they have successfully completed their tenure. So my heartfelt congratulations to the entire team. I should not forget late Dr. Ashoka, who has been the man who poured the concrete foundation for this Department of Criminology. Thank you so much for having me here, Principal Madam, Vice Principal Dr. Sarita D'Souza, and thanks to Mr. Don who connected me to this, the entire administrative staff and management, and dear students. It's a pleasure to speak on a topic that's regarding the future. If anyone asks me to talk about the history, I can consider that to be a comfortable part, because if we are talking about future here, we would be guessing, we would be anticipating, and we would be doing some academical astrology to predict something that it is going to happen like this. So talking about future of forensic is itself a challenge for me, and the department has asked me to talk on the challenges within this domain, which of course I would do within my capacity. Forensic is something that is so glorious that whenever you tell to your relatives or your friends that I'm studying forensic science, their jaws would drop and they will give one weird look that, oh wow, you're studying something that police does. That's the first thing they give. So already your subject is glorified the moment you share the information that you are studying forensic science or criminology. Secondly, people who aspire to become forensic scientists or become the subject expert within this domain, they come with a lot of expectations. It's not their mistake. The world has portrayed forensic science and investigations in such a way that it is shown at par with James Bond movies and Sherlock Holmes stories. It's certainly not their mistake. So it's quite obvious students who come within this domain, they come with huge expectations, and when they don't get it, some of them they turn their back and they move on. Some they try to introspect within, like what's wrong within the subject. Some they take it in a challenge and they try to know what exactly this subject is, and they take the real facts out of it. Let's keep that apart. Now in this conference, I have been given the task to talk about the future forensic opportunities and challenges, and that I'll be doing with, of course, with the help of a PowerPoint that I have made, and about the legal perception basically. Many of you would have been learning about this subject since quite a long time. I hope the slides are visible to you. Can you please confirm?
Yes.
It is. Okay. I don't have to get into the introduction of forensic because your teachers would have done the best job in doing it. I don't want to tell you anything about the law just because I'm an advocate. I don't want to burden you with the sections and articles and all. Here we'll just discuss for the future that we are trying to look at. What are the obstacles we have? What are the roadblocks we have? And those roadblocks need to be understood through the legal perspectives, as law is my domain. So I have tried to bring up certain aspects through the legal angles that can help you out to understand what are the challenging things that we will be facing here. So with all your permission, I would like to begin this my talk. Two basic questions that we always need to ask before getting into the system is, forensic for law or is it law for forensic? Who created this entire subject? Why did we create it? How was the world before the forensic was not there? There was no chemistry, there was no physics, there was no ballistics, nothing was there. So how was the world at that time? If you just imagine, well, we had a different system. We had witnesses, we had king's court, we had somebody who would come and say that, we have seized the materials inside his house, so he is a culprit. There was nothing like the present day modernized devices or instruments were available during that time. Gradually in 1700s, law came into an order. There was no order within the legal structures, legal platforms in the Western countries and even in the Asian countries and African countries. So there was an order that was brought within the law. We brought a structure. We said, okay, this is how the law must be there. This is the crime, this is the punishment for it. So there is an order now. Now everybody started to follow that order. When that was advent, we tried to bring forensic within it. And we brought it to help out the criminal justice system to say like, okay, look here, your duty is to bring the culprit and punish him within the box of law. And to do that, you need the help of forensic. Alright, so take, this is the forensic and these are the scientists who have made some inventions and discoveries. So kindly take their help and impart justice. Done. So here we brought a system where there is a law, and within that came forensic science, and we brought some experts, scientists, whose duty was to invent things, to bring up new instruments and devices so that we can pinpointedly say that he is the culprit. Rather than being very blurry in the situations, we need to be crystal clear. So forensic brings that clarity. So basically we are talking about a subject that brings clarity. So forensic was not created for law. There was a law, a section of law that was created for forensic science. So talking about that, many people don't understand that we have different types of criminal justice system in the whole world. The kind of system that we follow in USA is not the same that we follow in India, and is not the same that we follow in Australia, and is certainly not the same we follow in Africa. It's very easy for us to lean back on the sofa and watch the TV and comment that, look at the USA people, see how beautiful they are. They come in jeep, they behave well with the criminals, and they have a good attire. Look at our policemen. They come with tummies, they come in that old Bolero jeep that doesn't even go more than 60-70 km per hour. And how do they chase criminals by this? We always try to demean ourselves, but we don't know that the system of criminal justice is entirely different in US and it's entirely different in India. So there are two types of criminal justice system in the whole world. One is inquisitorial and another is adversarial. Inquisitorial, judge guides the system. He has all the power to initiate, to intervene, and to object, and also to direct the police and the forensic departments to do certain things. Whereas in adversarial, it's not like that. The entire the scene of collecting evidence is given to one person, one domain. Analyzing those evidence is entirely in the other domain. Now there are two advocates. One stands with the culprit and the other stands with the victim. And they both fight in the court. And judge looks at both of them. Judge doesn't have any active voice in the adversarial system because that's the system that India follows. Inquisitorial system is not the one that we follow. Inquisitorial system is where judge can actively participate. Whereas in India we don't have that. Over here, judge doesn't have any active role. He need to look at both of them. Say for example, as a prosecution, I am arguing on behalf of victim. If I argue good, the case is towards my side. If the defense has brought in a good presentation of the case and he has destroyed all my evidence, my arguments, he wins the case. We are literally playing a match here. Now, in both of this system, kindly think, where does forensic come in? Now, that's what we'll be looking at the upcoming part. Criminal justice system is a process where multiple functionaries come in. As you can see in the center part, there's a criminal and there's a victim. The criminal and a victim meets, there's a event that creates, that's called as crime. And somebody would go and complain to the police station and say, sir, this man committed a crime. So police would come, conduct a preliminary investigation, arrest the accused. So the victim is separate now, accused is separate. If you ask the question, who collected the evidence from the crime scene, or whose duty is to collect the evidences? It's the police department. Are they forensic experts? That's questionable. With all due regard to the police department, with all due regard to the police officers, I'm not questioning their capability. But sometimes we do get these questions. Do they really know the scientific way of collecting evidences? If no, then we are getting into the blunder era. Why? If you don't collect the evidences properly, how is that you're going to analyze it? If you don't analyze it properly, because there was lack of a preciseness in collecting evidence, what can judge do? Judge is sitting there like an umpire. Somebody collected the evidence. He did a mistake in that stage. Somebody did a mistake while analyzing the evidence. Prosecution couldn't come up with a strong case. Defense takes the advantage of it. What can judge do in it? Let me tell you, if you ever visit the court and if you ever get to witness a criminal case judgments, many a times accused are let off. Sometimes the judge knows that he is an accused, he is a culprit, but still you can't convict him because there are no evidences against him. At that point of time, in the judgment, judges won't write that you are innocent. They don't mention that he is innocent. They don't mention that the alleged person is innocent. They say that due to the lack of evidences, the accused is acquitted. The accused is acquitted doesn't mean that he is innocent. Now, accused is convicted doesn't mean that he is wrong. I'm not trying to confuse you people here, but I'm telling you the fact. Every person who is inside the prison is not bad. And every person who is let off by the court is not a godly figure for us. The one who is let off may be in reality a criminal, but we don't have any evidence to prove that. And people who are sitting inside the prisons as convict, maybe they are innocent. Only thing is they couldn't prove their innocence. Something was strong against them. This is how the system is. Crime happens, police collects the evidence. And how do they collect? You should ask them. Police gives that evidence to the forensic department. They say that please analyze this and give me the report. Alright? Forensic scientists are sitting inside the lab. They collect the evidence, they do the analysis and they give it to them. And those evidences are taken to the court by the prosecution and they said, Your Lordship, here is a criminal. And look, my police department, they collected the evidence and that has been analyzed by the forensic scientists and here is a report. And this report says he has committed a crime. Judge analyzes it. Now what will defense do? The opposite party, even they get to look at the forensic reports. They will try to find the loopholes within it. The biggest advantage for the opposite side is the first and foremost loophole they find within the police department. They say that, Your Lordship, the way they have collected the evidence itself is questionable. I'll give you an example of one of the Narcotics Control Bureau case. In one of the NCB case where they had seized drugs in a location, no need to tell the location and the name of the people and all. The case is still in the court. The police had written a report that I had seized this much amount of drugs. And he had even mentioned that we got an intelligence input that there is a drug peddling going on here and there's a drug storage and everything. So based on that input, we launched a secret police operation and accused were caught red-handed. And he wrote in the report that I have seized this many kilograms or whatever it is. Everything was done and the accused was brought to court, and in the court of law, in front of the judge, prosecution presented its version of case. They presented their arguments. The defense came in and they presented their counter arguments and they requested for the cross-examination. In the cross-examination, the defense advocate went to the police officer who seized the drug and he asked one question to the court. Gentlemen, you say that you have seized this much kilograms of drugs. Kindly bring me the weighing machine which you used to weigh the drugs. Get me that. If you have written the kilograms, I'm very sure you would not have used your hand to, weigh it. You would have used the weighing scale. You would have used the weighing machine. The defense advocate asked only one question. I completely agree that you have seized the drugs. I completely agree that my client, the so-called bad man, he was doing drug business. All right. Bring me the weighing scale on which you actually weighed it. Unfortunately, police didn't have that. Now look at here. You don't have to allege the policeman that, you didn't, seize the drugs, you did the wrong, you are the manipulators, nothing. You need one question. The question is, bring the weighing scale. When you don't have the weighing scale, there is a man sitting at the center called as judge. He looks at this entire event and he can write his inference there. He doesn't outrightly say that, oh, policeman, you are the culprit here. He doesn't say it. While writing the judgment, he points it out. And if the accused is released, though the judge knows that he's a drug peddler, he writes that due to the lack of efficient evidences to prove the fact, the culprit is acquitted. He doesn't write that he's innocent. He says that he's acquitted. So why is he acquitted? Because we don't have evidence. Did we really not have evidence? We had evidence, but we didn't have the proper methodology to collect it. We didn't have the proper methodology to document it. We didn't have the proper methodology to analyze it and report it. This is exactly how the criminal justice system works. And this system is different in USA, Germany, Australia, India, Africa. So kindly don't compare the one justice system to the other. Problems lies with them also. You're talking about evidence because for forensic means we need evidence. Everybody says that okay, we need to prove our guilt and we need to submit evidence for that. What exactly do we mean by evidence? It's nothing but what is obvious to eye or a mind, that's evidence. To prove something is an evidence. To discover some facts is an evidence. But having said that, whose duty is it? If you look at the forensic scientist's job here, do they collect evidence? That's the least job that you can find in the list here. They handle the crime scene evidence. In some cases, yes, they are brought. So for example, the Church Street blast that happened in Bangalore, the bomb blast case. Before the police entered the crime scene or the bomb blast scene, forensic scientists were brought in. One of our gentlemen from forensic laboratory, he even jumped the compound wall, collected certain pieces out of it. Do we see policemen doing it? They do. Rarely. You have hundreds and thousands of crimes that happen in a day. Do we expect the forensic scientists to go to all those hundreds of crime scenes, collect the evidence and come to the forensic lab? Or do you expect police department to go to that hundreds of crime scenes, collect the evidences and pass it on to the forensic lab? In many cases, you don't even have the time to record the crime scene because you know the culprit. There is always this, what is the word that I can use? The laziness and, some awkward way of doing things. We don't follow procedures. We don't follow SOPs. We don't go by traditional scientific methods. We go by, ruthlessness. So if you look at the forensic scientists, they handle the crime scene evidence. They testify in the court. They corroborate with the crime scene investigators. Police are the crime scene investigators. Document findings. They are within the lab. Whatever the evidence you give, they analyze it. Simple. Can they collect the evidences? Yes. They are called in some cases, not in all the cases. Okay, do you have time to call them in all the cases? Questionable part. Okay, do you allow the forensic scientists to go and collect the evidences in all the crime scenes? Question. So we'll look into that. All these evidences around which the forensic revolves, there are certain questions that need to be asked. What exactly do you mean by evidence? What constitutes an evidence? Who collects these evidence? Alright, most important question. Is evidence everything? Or who considers or rejects an evidence? You go to the court, you say that your lordship, this is an evidence against this man. Whether that needs to be allowed to be considered as an evidence or not, it is a discretion for the judge. If the entire case is over and you are bringing the evidence at the last stage, In certain cases, the court may allow, but let me tell you, it is not a compulsion. There is no compulsion to a judge that he should allow an evidence at the final stage. He needs to preliminarily analyze it. If he preliminarily gets to know that, okay, fine, this evidence has some substance, then he may allow, okay, fine, submit it. Else he can outrightly reject that, get rid of this evidence, I'm not going to allow it. So what's the use of finding evidence? What's the use of collecting evidence then? So we are talking about the domain of study which completely depends on evidence. Now why do you have forensic people? To collect evidence. But whose duty is to provide it as a proof? Police, prosecution. Now that's where we will be understanding here. Look at the role. Police collects the evidence. Forensic scientists analyze the evidence. Whereas law puts police, forensic scientists and the version of the accused on test on the table of law. So you have one section of people who collect the evidence and come. You have another section of people who analyze the evidence within the lab and make a report. You have other section of people who get those reports, call the policeman and forensic scientists to the court, and they try to present a version to the court, saying that, Your Lordship, this gentleman collected the evidence, this gentleman analyzed the evidence, and I am another gentleman or woman who is submitting it before you. And there's another person who is sitting there who tries to verify it and give a judgment. This complete division of labor, that police does separate job, scientist does a separate job, lawyer, judge, this has completely become a complicated system. So that's where I have referred to one of the statement given out in the World Economic Forum. They say law starts out with at least two competing parties with markedly different views who use the courthouse as a battleground. It's certainly true. At least with the Indian system, it is certainly true. Courtroom is nothing but a battleground where there are two competing parties. One is a prosecution and another is a defense lawyer. And they both fight, argue with the fact. Police would have collected the semen or blood. The other party will say that this is completely wrong. And they even bring the evidence for that. You would have collected the fingerprint. The other party would try to destroy that fingerprint. Not destroy in the sense, not the physical destruction, but it is as an argument. They say that no, this cannot be accepted. Hundreds of people would have come and gone. Or hundreds of reasons are there why this person would have gone to that room. What's the use? What's the circumstance here? So there are arguments that are posed in front of the court where police is also not in the picture, forensic scientists are also not in the picture. Here, the way you put a case is between two people, defense and prosecution. If the prosecution is weak, accused goes to home. If the prosecution is strong and the defense is weak, accused goes to the prison. And if the accused goes to the prison, it's a win for police and forensic scientists. If accused goes to home, it's a loss for both police and forensic scientists. This is how the system has been constructed. Now, what are the challenges here? I'll surely come to that. In Indian law, there are certain enactments that guide the forensic science. Law says to the forensic science, look, you travel like this, you take this path. There are two acts which guides majorly. One is Code of Criminal Procedure 1973. Another is Indian Evidence Act 1872. I'm very sure you all would have heard about it. Code of Criminal Procedure is for the police department, where they have a duty. I have just mentioned it there. It is mandated for them to investigate a crime, collect the evidence. And that is given under the chapter 12, where it comes under information to the police and their powers to investigate. What do you mean by investigate? That's the one word we use in the CRPC, investigate the case. What do you mean by investigating the case? Go to the crime scene, do the preliminary analysis, collect the crucial evidences, protect the crime scene, do the secondary or the further stage of investigations, proceed to give out those evidences to the forensic lab to analyze it, and submit a charge sheet to the court. Alright, what does Indian Evidence Act says then? Indian Evidence Act says, what all the evidences that police collect, there are only two types of evidence in it. Number one, oral evidence, and another is documentary evidence. So what do you mean by oral evidence? It's a testimony. It's a witness statement. Whatever the statement that you give for the court or magistrate, it is a oral statement and it will be inquired. Documentary evidences also involves electronic records also. Say if you, for example, if you submit an email transcription, if you submit an SMS or a WhatsApp chat, even that is a documentary evidence. It's an electronic evidence through a document picture. In all these places, we need the help of forensic science. But can we assume that forensic plays a huge role in it? Because it is the police who collects the evidence. What if they commit a mistake at the starting stage itself? Can forensic science correct it? Can you go back to the crime scene and correct it? Can you go and collect it again in a very good manner? Say for example, the police have collected a blood-stained shirt and they don't know how to bring it. He completely rolls it up and brings it to the forensic lab. And as a forensic person, or as an analyst, or as a scientist, you know what is the biggest blunder that police would have committed? I'm not targeting policemen here. I'm targeting those policemen who are incapable of collecting the evidences, because we need to train them. Else we need to give it to the hands of forensic scientists. That can create a whole lot of a job in the country. Then everybody will feel happy that we will get a job in India, because it's your duty to collect the evidence. So basically there are two laws in India that can guide the forensic science. That is CRPC and Evidence Act. This is how the law has structured itself for the sake of forensic science. Now, having said that, few people know that evidence and proof are not same. The moment you collect an evidence doesn't mean that it is a proof against the accused. Kindly keep it in mind. Anybody can come to my room where I am now giving you a lecture. They can collect my fingerprint. They can collect some of the threads or some particles that are left out in this room that belong to me. Is it an evidence? Whatever you have collected. You come to my room, you collect the thread, my fingerprint, some of the particles, my footprints, my semen, my saliva. Whatever you have collected, kindly answer me. Is it an evidence? Is it an evidence? I think you have an unmute option in the Google Meet. Anything that you collected from this room, can I call this as an evidence? Can I? I just need yes or no, nothing much. Rest everything I speak. Alright, it's Saturday, people are in weekend mode. Don't think that evidence are proof. Both are different. You may collect a best of an evidence, but if you don't have the capacity to prove it in the court of law, there is no use of collecting evidence. Evidence is something that shows that something else exists. If you collect my fingerprint from this room, it shows that I was present here. But does it prove that I am the one who committed a crime? No. So proof is where the evidence is used to establish an argument. So that's the difference between the evidence and proof. So forensic people, they analyze the evidence, they submit a report, but at the end of the day, using the argument and proceeding it in the court to make sure you present it well in the court, that's where the proof lies. If you have not presented it well, there's no use of police collecting the evidence, forensic scientists analyzing the evidence, and you people arguing in the court. Evidence is everything that you collect. Anything you collect here, it's an evidence. A bottle is an evidence, water bottle is an evidence. I mean, the laptop, wires, pen, pin, everything is an evidence. But not all those evidences are proof. That's where the difference lies. Proof is where you use that evidence to prove a fact. So it's nothing but pieces of information, evidences, But proof is when you logically conclude something by bringing those evidence together. And evidence is suggestive, whereas the proof is concrete. And who say that this is a proof and this is not a proof? It's a court. So you bring an evidence. Through that evidence, if you are able to establish a fact against an accused, it is a fact proved. That means the court has honorably accepted your evidence and it has said that, yes, gentlemen, you are superb. Whatever the evidence you have collected, it is connecting to him, so it's a proved fact. Alright? You brought in evidence and you are not able to prove it against that person. You heard a gunshot, but who shot it, you don't know. But there's a bullet, there's a suit. You don't know. You have not yet concretely established. Disproved. So you have collected an evidence, you are not yet, you have completely failed to connect it to the accused. So there is a fact disproved. The court will say that don't bring it again. Because whatever the evidence you have collected, it is not connecting to the accused. So that fact cannot be proved. So it is a fact disproved. Then is fact not proved. You have collected an evidence, but you have not yet tried to establish a connection between both. So there are three ways in which fact can take a form. Those forms are the fact proved, fact disproved, and fact not proved. In the court of law, all the three exist. And very importantly, all these three exist in the Evidence Act. So forensic people, they collect evidence and they analyze the evidence. But have you proved it in the court of law? All the evidences that you have collected and analyzed, is it worthy enough to prove it in the court of law? That matters a lot at the end of the day. So this is how the facts take a shape, and this is how the facts are proved in the court or disproved or not proved in the court of law. So you may collect an evidence, you may go inside a place like a Sherlock Holmes, but whatever the things you have collected, if you fail to connect it to the accused, you can't prove anything. So yes, congratulations, you have evidence, but no congratulations, because you have not yet proved anything. That's where we are going to come to the challenges in the upcoming part. I have another 15 minutes. Host?
Yes, sir.
Alright. The application of the science to the legal analysis is fundamentally one of the reconstruction. We basically look at what happened, where it happened, when it happened, and who was involved. This is what forensic science is. You all know that well. But forensic science cannot prove why something happened, because its motivation is connected to the brain. It's not your duty. So when the science is applied in this manner, we add an adjective to it. It's forensic science. So when we go behind the science that tries to establish a fact about what happened, when it happened, where it happened, and who did it, that's what we call as forensic science. So they actually assist the court. So the biggest question why we have the forensic science, to assist the court in India. That is exactly the version that needs to be changed. Because so far, forensic science is considered as a helping hand. Very much true. Yes, they are a helping hand. But without a liberty. I'll come to those aspects in the upcoming slide. So forensic analysis is performed on the evidence to assist the court in establishing the physical facts so that the criminal or civil disputes can be resolved. Very true. Whenever we have the dispute, say for example, property documents. There are so many people nowadays in Bangalore, in other parts of India, who have brought up certain devices and instruments, and they do the forensic analysis of the documents. And they submit it to the court. They say that, Your Lordship, I have done the forensic analysis, the papers are fake. It goes on. You have the science, take the help of it. The legal question determines the direction of the scientific inquiry. Look at this. It is a job of the forensic scientist to translate the legal inquiry into an appropriate scientific question. And they need to advise the judiciary on the capabilities and limitations of the current techniques. I think the upcoming resource person is going to tell you about the narco analysis and the brain mapping and all. That's certainly not my jurisdiction. But who decides what should be accepted and what not should be accepted? Euthanasia is a big question in India. Narco analysis is a big question in India. DNA analysis is a big question in India. N.D. Tiwari, at the age of 90, the court pressurized him to give his DNA to check whether the alleged person is a son or not for him. He finally accepted at the age of 90. that yes, he is my son. Science was there to prove that fact for more than 40 years. 40 years. You had the science in your hand for 40 years, and N.D. Tiwari accepted that the person X or A, B, C, whoever it is my son at the age of 19. We had science, we didn't use it. Why? Because it is not so easy to use the science. You can't call N.D. Tiwari and make him to sit in a hospital and say that give your DNA. Constitution cannot so easily allow that. Narco analysis cannot be easily allowed to happen in such a way. That's where we will see the challenges now. So the point of covering here starts now. What is a big challenge for the forensic science? Number one, it's an intersection. It is not a primary domain. Between the police and court, the forensic science comes in the intersection part. Imagine that you're an expert chef. You can cook wonders. We know that. The world knows that. But what you're going to cook depends on what vegetables you have. And the person who brings the vegetables brings the poor quality one. Can you cook good? No. Imagine forensic science is an expert chef. He can do wonders based on the evidence that he gets. But if the evidences are being collected at a poor level, without a quality, without efficiency, what can you expect a forensic scientist to do? So things need to be corrected at a different stage, not at the forensic lab. Second one, there is a lack of connection between the investigation and the prosecution phases. Forensic scientist comes in a junction. He comes, gives a helping hand and goes away. We need to have him at the entire process. The moment a crime happens, we need a forensic scientist to be there. Stand with the police department, stand with the prosecution, and stand with the judiciary. At all the junctions we need him, because he is the one who can advise us on science, not anyone else. But no, we have completely lost that connection. No Wi-Fi. So that entire connection is lost. Police does its own job separately. Forensic does its job separately. Prosecution does its job separately. I've seen so many advocates going and attending seminars, conferences, taking extra classes to know about evidences. Judges, they show interest in understanding things. Few cases happen like that. Doesn't happen everywhere in India. That's a big challenge. Forensic science being at an intersection of both police and the court itself is a big challenge. We need to recognize them as a separate domain. We need to give them the due recognition that they deserve, because they are the one who have the scientific mind to apply on the evidences. Secondly, you need to bridge the gap. There's a gap between the investigation and the prosecution. Forensic can bridge it, but so far we have not yet given that ladder to them. Provide the ladder, they can climb and they can help out. Next is strategic oversight. How far we need to think? Who is accountable? Let me go back to what I said. Somebody is going to blame in the court that accused is acquitted, he is now going home freely. You are to be blamed. Who? Police. The other person will say, no, not me. Ask the forensic guy. He didn't analyze properly. Then the another person will say, oh, it's not police and forensic. Ask the prosecution. It's that lawyer who didn't argue well. Now you tell me, there is an accused who left the court, going home freely. Who is going to take the accountability for that? Have we ever seen that somebody is made responsible because they lost a case? There's no accountability. Lack of that strategic oversight and the accountability is where we need to bring the forensic to the next level. And we need to exactly give the value for that forensic science that it deserves. And it needs to be appreciated at a place where it deserves. Next is bureaucratic obstacles that are very much there. Everybody would like to see our country developing in such a way that we have the best of the class, state-of-the-art equipments and instruments in our laboratories. Very true. We all give a huge list of it, to the government or to the appropriate authorities. Please get us these instruments. Please get us these devices. It will take more than 10 years or 5 years or say any other years to procure. The very reason is they will ask why. Second thing is modernization. Third thing is approval. To get an approval, you need to wait years. And within that year, you would have got even best instrument. So you order something in 2010, it comes in 2020. And in 2020, you would have already had even more better instrument in the place. Even today, many of the CCTV resolution matchmaker, we go to Gujarat. Why don't we have it in Bhopal? Why don't we have it in Meghalaya? Why don't you have it in other parts of Jammu and Kashmir or in Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu? Bureaucratic obstacles. Approvals are not given so easily. And then you will also have something, the challenging questions. Do all the cases need forensic science to be investigated? That's a question. Only if we answer that, we will understand the role of forensic science. Secondly, should the private labs or agencies need to be given more liberty to share the burden of the government agencies? Of course, yes. You need a separate policy for that. You need to ensure that entrepreneurs come up. Every forensic student goes out of the college getting a degree, need not always ask for a job from the government, need not ask a private company for a job. They must become entrepreneurs, and you need to have a policy in place to help them out. Set up a lab, provide subsidies. Do we need a forensic counselor to bridge the gap between investigation and prosecution? Of course, yes. Even this is a place where forensics experts can be given a job. You need one person as a counselor who can guide. You don't have to collect evidence. At least you need a person to guide them, tell them, bridge that gap. We don't have that, unfortunately. You need to have a counselor to counsel a prosecutor, counsel a judge about the science. Don't favor anyone. Be unbiased, but tell science. Unfortunately, we don't have that counselor. So forensic counselor is a one big opportunity or an exposure that we people can get. Between social good and economic cost, which one do we need to choose? Many a times, cost comes into the picture. Yes, we all have dreams, but do we have enough finance and budget for that? Everybody wants to start a forensic course. Do you have an appropriate budget? Every institute wants to bring state-of-the-art equipments. Do you have the budget? Now, those are the challenging part. Now, how do you need to address it? Can government provide subsidy to it? Can anyone take the onus of privately providing instruments and take a share out of it? Questionable part. We need to find answers for that. Is it necessary for the police, court, and lawyers to have the same level of knowledge of forensic scientists possess? Can we expect it from them? No. Forensic scientist is a scientist. He needs to be expert in his domain. But that scientist need to stand and provide an expert suggestions, explain the science to them and help them out. So do you need a forensic counselor in court? Yes. Do you need a forensic counselor in the police station? Yes. Do you need a forensic expert in the labs? They are already there. So these are the challenging questions which can provide us some answers on it. Opportunities. Look, if you find answers to the challenging question, that itself is an opportunity. So that's exactly what I have written up here. Number one, we should not expect everybody to go and find a job. We should not expect everybody to get a government job or find a place in the labs. We need entrepreneurs. The more and more entrepreneurs come in, the private investigations are recognized. Once the private investigations are recognized, we will start able to share the burden of the government. And that's when the policy can bring up a huge twinning of things. They can say, okay, fine, let's recognize these private investigations. More and more labs must come out. More and more instruments need to be procured. Increasing stratifications and demanding situation for the loss prevention and organizational investigations, that's where you have an opportunity. Nowadays, every private companies wants to have forensic experts. And they need those people. And that's where your opportunity lies. Next is policy changes. Look, certainly it's not in your domain, but if you want forensic science to get what they deserve, changes need to happen at the policy structures. It needs to happen inside the parliament and the legislative assemblies. They can provide recognition to you. They can ensure that you are given a proper platform to work on. Fourth one, at last, allow forensic scientists to do what they are good at. If in police department we can reform, bring certain changes where the evidences are collected by the forensic scientists and they analyze it by themselves, we can find some amount of a positive changes in the trend. Else, untrained policemen, people with the lack of forensic knowledge, they will start entering the crime scene. They don't know the subject, they don't know the science, and we can't blame them also. And contaminated evidence comes to your lab. If the rotten things are there on your platter, you can't convert it into a flavorable dish. So opportunity lies in where forensic scientists are allowed to work in their domain. They are given a chance, they are given a platform to do what they're best at, to do what they're good at. So these are certain opportunities which I have done under certain bigger umbrella. So with a very short time, I had to cover a huge future of 100 years or 150 years. So I hope I have done justice here. So my heartfelt thanks to all of you whoever listened to it with all patience here. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, sir. It was a very interesting webinar. We all enjoyed listening to this. And the doodles, I must say, the doodles on the PPT were really unique. Participants, the feedback link will be sent in the chat box. Kindly open the link and leave your suggestions. It will be maintained as a document and considered as your attendance. I thank our resource person, Mr. Hemant Kumar, for making some time from his busy schedule and being here with us to share his thoughts and knowledge. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much to all the administrative staff, faculty members, and students. Thank you for being here. I just shared whatever I had in my mind. There are many things that even I need to learn from other experts too. But it's just a sharing of knowledge. What I know, I tell to you. What you know, you tell to others. So I hope this passing of knowledge continues further. May the institution keep making these anniversaries again and again and again. Let this reach centenary, and I hope to see the growth of this institution, and also we'll be happy to see your students making a mark in this forensic field. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Participants, the feedback link will be open only for 30 minutes. Kindly fill them.
Am I allowed to exit?
Sir?
Am I allowed to exit, or shall I stay for this?
Yeah, sir. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much once again, all of you. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir. You too, sir.
Hello. Hello everyone. Hello everyone. The feedback form is in the chat box. Please do fill it for certificate. And the feedback form will be available only for 30 minutes.